Hi Vocal Jazzers, Carrie Marsh here to introduce you to the new SkyTracks Mixers now available at carriemarsh.com for over 130 arrangements, with more being added throughout the fall. You may already know what a digital audio workstation is, often abbreviated as a DAW or referred to as a DAW. But if you're new to the idea, it's a category of music software including programs like Pro Tools, GarageBand, Logic, Digital Performer, and many others. Simply put, these programs allow the user to record and mix audio, add effects like reverb and compression, and much more. Our new SkyTracks Mixers are like a stripped-down and simplified DAW that you and your students can access through your desktop or laptop computer's web browser, such as Chrome or Safari. Support for mobile device browsers is coming early this fall, making SkyTracks Mixers even more useful to students who may be using their phone or tablet in place of a laptop or desktop computer. And for any students who may temporarily not be able to access SkyTracks Mixers, we're including all available part tracks, -1 tracks, and rhythm tracks along with every order to make sure you're able to hit the ground running this year. The SkyTracks Mixers available from carriemarsh.com are loaded up with the various audio tracks from the demo recordings for arrangements featured in our catalog. This new platform is allowing us to give you and your students access to the basic mixing controls for all the various tracks in those recordings. This will allow everyone to engage with these demos in some exciting new ways. You can solo any combination of the tracks. It's a new day, it's a new day for me. I'm feeling. You can mute tracks.
Until the end, it's time forever on the edge, just working for your bed.
And you can make granular changes to the volume levels of the various tracks. So now, a student needing to practice his or her part on an arrangement can quickly create their own part track to isolate that part and learn it by ear. They can listen to the part on its own, a cappella.
We are like children, we're painted on canvases, picking up shades as we go.
And they can bring in the metronome track to have a solid tempo reference.
Watch your technique as you go. Step back and
or they might prefer just to bring in the drums.
Can I use the colors I choose?
And now let's see what it's like with only the bass supporting that part.
Yes. Greens and some blues.
How about some harmonic support from the piano? And of course, with full control over the starting point, it's easy to jump around the arrangement using the visual waveforms on screen as a guide. So it's easy to skip to any sections that need more work and quickly loop them to get more repetition. What about listening to just the vocals on an accompanied chart? That's something we've never offered in the past, but it can be pretty cool to check out. You would just unsolo the part that you've been working on, and then mute all the rhythm section tracks, which we've conveniently labeled in black here. Once your student has a pretty solid grasp on their part, they might be ready to get some practice singing it with the rest of the parts only and their own part missing. That's super easy with the SkyTracks Mixer. They'll just mute the track for their part and sing along, working to gain a sense of part independence. And if your student's thinking about auditioning for a lyric solo in the chart, or maybe the scat solo, they can mute the solo track, which is always included at the top of our SkyTracks Mixers, labeled in red. As the director, you may be in remote learning mode for a while, but once you're back to live rehearsals, SkyTracks Mixers can be really useful in that context as well. Plug your computer's audio output into your sound system, and you can open up the SkyTracks Mixer and solo the rhythm section parts to create an accompaniment track. Or if you've got a smaller group and a singer happens to be missing in that day's rehearsal, and they're the only one singing their part, you can additionally solo that missing part. Want Julia Dollison to sit in with your group because your lead soprano is out for the day? It's pretty easy.
I like soul with a capital S. Soul with a capital S. Sweet soul music, that's the best. Soul with a capital S.
Here's a huge bonus to every SkyTracks Mixer purchase you make. You'll also receive access to a folder of all the audio stems used in the SkyTracks. If you're a vocal jazz director teaching remotely this year and utilizing Soundtrap, BandLab, or some other collaborative cloud recording platform in order to create recordings with your group, this may be a serious benefit to you in your process. Now you can start your semester by loading all of our demo recording stems into your group's project file. Then your students can work on their own recordings with our demo stems as support. So rather than have your lead soprano record their part with just a click track and a piano scratch track, as might otherwise have been the routine, they can now have the support of the rest of the ensemble's parts already in place. Then you can mute or delete each of our stems as your students get their parts recorded, ultimately arriving at a more unified, naturally clean and expressive sound sung by everyone with confidence. And of course it should make the process a lot more fun and reminiscent of the experience of singing with their fellow choir members. And you're more than welcome to use our rhythm section tracks for your virtual choir projects if you like. Or you can have your own rhythm section players record their parts. And when they do record, they'll be playing with a solid scratch track for reference, and the click track we provide in the stems folder will keep them all lined up. If you want to know a little more detail about how the tracks work, I'll just get into the idea of splitting parts, because you may wonder how it works when sopranos split down to soprano 2 in 3-part treble clef writing and other similar situations. For any voice parts that may involve a little more complexity, like those soprano 2 splitting or baritone split parts, singers will just need to know that there are 2 tracks that make up all the notes of their part, rather than just one. Every SkyTracks Mixer has all the necessary instructions below it for finding which tracks to utilize for part learning. For example, in the SkyTracks Mixer for Yesterdays, the tenor and basses each have their own single track. Pretty easy to manage, of course. But if I were an alto, also covering soprano 2 notes when they occurred, I'd look down at the instructions and see that my 2 tracks to focus on are called alto and soprano 2 split. That's also pretty easy to figure out. If, instead, I were an alto who always sang the bottom notes in the treble clef and did not split up to soprano 2, I could see that my 2 tracks were called alto and alto split. That's it. It works similarly with tenor baritone and bass baritone splits as well, as you can see in the publicly available SkyTracks Mixer for Baby Won't You Please Come Home. Very occasionally there will be one level further of complexity to these splits that requires the use of 3 different tracks for some of the parts. But the concept remains the same throughout the system, and the instructions are written to be very clear. When you purchase any SkyTracks Mixer package, you'll download a PDF file containing a special series of links, one of which is for the Mixer page itself, as well as a simple password for you and your students to use to access it. The other links take you to the downloadable vocal part tracks, -1 tracks, rhythm track when applicable, and the new stems folder. Visit carriemarsh.com to try out the SkyTracks Mixer for Baby Won't You Please Come Home, and browse the full collection of titles currently supported by this new technology. You may have already purchased one or more charts from our catalog that now has a SkyTracks Mixer. That's why we're including the option to purchase the SkyTracks package without the chart, saving you the unnecessary expense of buying the sheet music again. Julia and I hope that this will be a big help to you in your new school year, and that it might bring some excitement to the learning process, whether you're teaching remotely, in person, or using a hybrid model. Most importantly, we're hopeful that you and your students and everyone's families will stay safe and healthy as we work through this challenging time and strive to keep the music going and our singers growing. Thank you for your time.